Wow, not too sweet. Oh my God, you guys. The almond, the toasted almond comes through this cake in every single bite. You guys, you are not going to need a big piece of this at all. This is super satisfying. The almond through every layer is absolutely fantastic. Wow. I have to say, I was a bit worried as I was building this, thinking about these textures were going to be a little bit weird, but let me tell you, this cake really came through. The third addition to the Good Humor Ice Cream Bar Cake series. I have recently made the chocolate eclair version of the Good Humor ice cream bar. And before that, I did the strawberry shortcake crunch cake. So naturally, we have to roll right into the third edition, which is the toasted almond ice cream bar. The toasted almond ice cream bar actually is a bit more of a sophisticated taste, I think. And so if you were a child and ordering the toasted almond, I mean, I kind of think you had a bit of a sophisticated palate for a kid, right? So I don't know, comment below and let me know which of the three was your absolute favorite. They're all so amazing, and the cake version of these flavors are actually probably even more amazing, if I dare say so. So as usual with any cake like this is a building on recipes project where we do have to prepare several recipes ahead of time before we actually get to the building of this cake. And first and foremost is going to be the almond sponge cake, which is going to be the base for this cake. So I have added a little bit of vinegar to my plant milk. I always use soy milk for baking. That is the only plant milk that will thicken up to mimic a buttermilk. I've already added my hot water to my flax meal, which is going to be the egg replacer for this sponge cake recipe. And I have some, this is some sliced almonds here. My original recipe for this almond sponge cake, I used all whole almonds or just all almonds versus the almond meal, which I have here today. So if you have one or the other, it's totally fine. I do make a note on the blog post of how to sort of adjust yourself to compensate if you are using all whole nuts or if you're using the almond flour. So I'm sort of using a combination of both today. But as always, head over to my website at gretchensveganbakery.com where you'll have to grab the recipe anyway. But I always do add more notes I think, because sometimes I'm not really that clear on the video. I mean, I don't know, maybe I am, but I think sometimes it helps to have a written instruction when you do go to print out the recipe. So over in this bowl, I do have some all-purpose flour. I've added baking soda and baking powder and a little bit of salt. And of course, I have some vegan butter. And I've really been using this Country Crock vegan butter a lot lately. I kind of love it. So it's, you know, it's cheaper than the Earth Balance, which I've always sort of stuck by for all of my vegan baking, but man, everything's so expensive now. I mean, this is, you know, not that much cheaper, but it is a little bit cheaper, and every little bit helps. So, and it works great. So I'm using the Country Crock olive oil one today as the base, and I do have some sugar here as well. Now I'm going to be adding in some vanilla extract, and I actually didn't realize that I had this awesome Olive Nation brand extract. So I was using that creepy almond extract that I don't even know where I got that, looking like a yard sale. But Olive Nation sent me this, so I'm super excited to be adding a really high quality almond extract to my cake recipe this time. So first, what I have to do, because I am using the raw nuts in addition to the almond flour, I have to get this into my food processor, and I didn't feel like dragging it out onto the table today. You guys, I'm so tired, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this in the kitchen, and I'll be right back. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my flour, and I have the baking powder and soda and salt in there as well. And I'm just gonna kind of give this a little stir because this is going to get added. We're doing an alternating creaming method for this cake recipe today. So let me get that started right now. Vegan butter with the sugar. And get that mixing on medium to high speed. It's probably gonna take about 3 to 5 minutes to get to light and fluffy status. And in the meantime, I'm going to add my extract to my plant milk that also had the vinegar in there. This luscious almond extract that I forgot I had on the chantilly cake from Olive Nation. Whoops. Grab the discount code below this video in the box. So I do just want to stop mid-mix to scrape down the bottom and the sides of the bowl to make sure that everything's mixing in evenly, and then let it go for the rest of the time. I mean, you could see already that this is getting nice and light and fluffy. I'll tell you what, I really do like this Country Crock vegan butter. It works beautifully. Also in my buttercream recipe that we're going to get to next, wait till you see this almond buttercream that I'm going to make with the same Country Crock. And I love it because it stays white. It doesn't have that added colorings that a lot of vegan butters do that makes all of our stuff look yellow. All right, that's looking pretty good. Give it one more nice scrape down, and then we're going to add in that reconstituted flax meal. Give it a good whip on high speed to emulsify, and then start the alternating creaming. So alternating creaming, let's start with the first addition of dry, and you're gonna do it in thirds. So just sort of like visually divide your flour mixture into 3 parts. Now we're not trying to mix this out until it's completely smooth and you know, like it's just till it's incorporated. And so you see how it's just starting to incorporate, and now I'm adding in half of my soy milk mixture. Same idea, just until it's incorporated. We're not trying to like make this batter completely smooth yet. We're gonna do that at the end. But here goes my second addition of dry ingredients. And the last of the wet. It really is a fast process. I'm not like taking 5 minutes to do this. That's why a lot of people will say, aren't you making your cake really tough by mixing it like that? And honestly, it doesn't. The whole idea behind an alternating creaming method is that when you have a cake recipe that has such a high liquid content like this one does, you have to sort of, whoops, don't make a mess like I did. You have to kind of help it along because it's going to want to curdle. Your batter is going to want to break because it's such a high amount of liquid in a recipe like this, which is what makes it so moist and amazing. So, but doing the alternating creaming method, you're not going to develop the batter, especially because we've added in that liquid in between. So that's going to sort of interfere with the gluten development. All right, let me do one last scrape down to make sure this is all evenly mixed. Ooh, I smell that luscious almond extract. And then I've got my oven preheating to 350 degrees already. My cake pans are greased and parchment lined, and then we're gonna get this into the oven. And we're not done yet because we still have to mix the white cake. Now on to this buttercream. I am making an almond paste buttercream. So this video was not sponsored by Olive Nation, but I am incorporating their last, what they sent me for the cassata cake. I used almond paste to make the marzipan and this almond extract that I forgot I had. So by adding almond paste into my buttercream recipe, wait till you taste the depth of flavor that this creates. It's almost like a frangipan buttercream by adding in that almond paste, and it's also going to add some stability to it as well. So this, again, not sponsored by Olive Nation on this particular video, but they are getting a freebie shout out today because I still have some of their ingredients left over from my last cake. So how awesome is that? Speaking of freebies, they have also extended you guys a 20% off discount if you want to go ahead over to their website, and anything that you order just by using the discount code that's listed below this video in the description box, you'll get 20% off your order at Olive Nation. So because the almond paste is like nothing but sugar, I mean it's like almonds and sugar, that's all almond paste is. It is going to add sweetness to the buttercream, so I'm going to be not using the full amount of confectioner sugar that I would in my buttercream recipe. So let's go ahead and get that mixed up, really quickly. And then by that time my cakes will be baked and cooled and we can start building this cake. Okay, so again, I'm using the Country Crock olive oil sticks for my buttercream today. And because it's essentially an olive oil vegan butter, I like to use it cold. I just took this out of the refrigerator because honestly it is just an olive oil spread and it doesn't really get hard in the refrigerator. So I find that if I bring it to room temperature and get it soft before I mix my buttercream just is like super soft. So I like to mix it out when it's still cold. A pinch of salt to that is going to balance out all of this sugar. Let me see. This almond paste from Olive Nation is so beautiful. If you guys saw me use this in my cassata cake video when I made the marzipan, oh my god, it's so amazing. It's so soft and delicious. So I'm not sure that I want to add this straight into the butter though. I might want to do a little switcheroo here. Let me just kind of whip this smooth real quick. Okay, so I'm definitely making more work for myself because I should have softened up my almond paste first. So, and that's just because I'm not real sure how this almond paste is going to mix out, and if you add the almond paste to the buttercream last, you're definitely going to have lumps. So I want to smooth out my almond paste first and then add in the butter and then add in the sugar. So let me just do a little switcheroo here. Okay, so almond paste in first and we're going to smooth that out. I think I'm going to add a little bit of butter to it to help it smooth. And you know what? I'm not even too concerned about it if it's not exactly super smooth because this is one rustic cake. If you guys know anything about the Good Humor Crunch Bar cakes, they got the crunch on the outside. So if you are not a cake decorator, this is the cake for you. It could look as ugly as it needs to be. It is going to be delicious. Get a little bit of that almond extract in there to jack it up even more. A little bit of vanilla. All right, and now the sugar can go in all at once. And we're just gonna whip it up smooth and get to building this cake. Wow, you guys, this is so stable. That almond paste really does add some stability to this no shortening recipe for buttercream. And obviously I cut way back on the sugar because the almond paste has a lot of sugar in it. But look at this, it's so white, it's so beautiful. And how does it taste? It's so good. Ooh, that almond extract is amazing. All right, let me stop. Let us get to building this cake before I get out of hand. So let's talk about this white cake recipe. Last week I made the chantilly cake with my white cake, truly white vegan white cake recipe. And I needed to double the recipe so that I could get enough for that cake. And I mismeasured on the baking powder, which resulted in this very thin, very dense, pound cake-like texture of a cake, which I don't hate. So that's what I call serendipity, because that was not what I was going for, not for that cake. But for this cake, I think it actually really works. It kind of reminds me of ice cream. Isn't that weird? I mean, it's cake, but it sort of reminds me of the velvety, I don't know, like smooth texture of ice cream. And I think it's going to really work well with this almond sponge cake. So I wouldn't recommend, I mean, what do I tell you guys all the time? If you have a fail with your recipe, 9 times out of 10, it's because we didn't convert the math properly, we didn't measure properly. So I doubled the recipe, but I didn't double the baking powder, which left me with this really thin, dense, pound cake-like cake. So again, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but this was sort of serendipitous, and I'm going to use these layers for this cake. Now, of course, if you wanted a fluffier white cake, you're going to follow the recipe as you're supposed to on that recipe post. But if you want these very tight pound cake-like layers, you're going to follow the recipe like a mistake. So I did say earlier that I have an obscene amount of cake here, and I was going to have to adjust the recipe for you guys, but now that I think about it, it's not, because I need a whole layer, or the trimmings, I need a whole layer of one of these cakes, whether it's the white cake or the almond sponge cake, to grind up so that it could be the toasted crunch for the outside of this cake. So I take back what I said. You definitely are going to need a full recipe of the almond sponge and a full recipe of the white cake. Now, whether you use 3 layers of white and 2 almond, or 3 layers of almond and 2 white, is completely up to you. I'm going to go for 3 layers of the thin white cake and 2 layers of this almond sponge cake. And that's what my cake is going to look like when we cut it. Obviously with the almond buttercream in between, almond buttercream on the outside, and then that crunchy cake crunch, which is signature for all of the Good Humor ice cream bar cakes. So I've gone ahead and crunched up my 1 layer of almond sponge cake and the trimmings from the white cake. And I've even added some almonds to mine too, because I really want this almond flavor to pop, and you know, having some crushed up almonds in there too is going to keep this outside really crunchy. So this, I mean, you could hear that. This is super crunchy. So I ground up the cake in my food processor, and then I just laid it out on a sheet pan and toasted it in the oven for like 20 minutes until it was nice and dried out and crispy. And that's going to be the outer coating of this toasted almond cake. So as always, if you guys want to go ahead and Tim? Seriously? You're such a big mouth. I have a little stray kitty cat who lives with us now, so that makes number 4. I'm sort of like the stray cat keeper. They know where to come. I'm a sucker for kitty cats, so he showed up outside about a month ago, and now he lives with us, and he's a big mouth. Tim? So I was saying, of course, you guys can, if you didn't want to do both layers of, both recipes of cake, you could absolutely just really stick with the almond sponge cake, almond buttercream, and you'll still have a beautiful toasted almond cake. But I really wanted to sort of mimic the look of the ice cream bar. And with this mistake of a white cake recipe, I think I'm pulling it off perfectly. So, you know, I do have a feeling, I have tasted just the components, like the buttercream obviously is always going to be sweet. The almond sponge cake is going to be your closest rendition to a sponge cake from our past life. The texture is really beautiful. It's really delicate. And I have also cut back a little bit on the sugar from my original version of that one because I just think all of this stuff playing together, I have a feeling this is going to be a super sweet cake. But thinking back on the toasted almond cake, toasted almond ice cream bar, that was one sweet ice cream bar. I mean, it just was what it was. And I always laugh because, you know, I'll get comments sometimes, it's just like random people showing up on my channel and they're just like, oh my God, that's going to be so sickeningly sweet. But it's dessert, like it's cake. It's supposed to be sweet. I mean, not sickeningly sweet, but like, you know, cake has sugar in it, dessert has sugar in it, and you're not supposed to eat the whole cake. You know, and that was one thing that really highlighted when I made the cassata cake for Easter. If you read up on the history of the cassata cake, that is one sweet, decadent cake. But you know what? You're not eating the whole cake. Like, one thing that the history of the cassata cake really pointed out was that, you know, that's one cake that really served a lot of people because it is so rich and you only need a little sliver. So anyway, we'll see. A lot of times as I'm making these cakes, I'm like, oh my God, this thing is going to be like sugar overload. And especially on the cassata cake, I will say that. But when I ate that cake, I was like, wow, this is not too sweet at all. This is absolutely perfect. So going back to the toasted almond cake and toasted almond ice cream bar, that was one sophisticated flavor. As a kid, like not many kids were opting for the toasted almond ice cream bar, that's for sure. I mean, if you saw a kid that was getting the toasted almond ice cream bar off the ice cream truck, you were like, okay, this kid is going places. This kid's got a sophisticated palate. They're not asking for no Fat Frog or SpongeBob ice cream bar, like, you know. But comment below, let me know if you were one of those kids who opted for the toasted almond ice cream bar. I have a feeling I'm going to like it much better in cake form. So I mentioned earlier too, like this is one cake style that you do not have to be any kind of fancy decorator. It's a very rustic looking cake. We're gonna literally coat the whole entire outside with that toasted almond crunch. So this is a great beginner's cake recipe. So if you really want to impress somebody with the flavors of a vegan cake, to really show them that vegan baking is like unbelievable and nothing like they think it is and way better than it used to be, this series of good humor ice cream bar cakes is a really good way to go because you don't need any kind of decorating skills at all. So yeah, this is how easy. Simple buttercream filling, a very rustic buttercream icing, and we're gonna cover this entire thing with that crunch. So that is pretty much it, guys. That's how easy it is to make a Good Humor toasted almond ice cream bar cake. So I really just want to thank my patrons on Patreon, as always, and my pals in PayPal for the continued support. These guys are the ones who are funding this effort to continue allowing me to share my recipes for free. They really do offset the cost of all of these ingredients so that I can test and test again and make sure that I'm only putting out no fail results for you guys every time, so that you don't have to waste your precious time and money testing recipes that you just don't know if they're going to work or not. You can always be sure that at Gretchen'sVeganBakery.com the recipes are tried and true. And if you do have recipe fails, I'll always try to help you walk through it. The video tutorials, of course, are always really helpful so that you can kind of see where you may or may not be going wrong. So if you think you want to join the Patreon group, click the links below. For as little as a cup of coffee a month, you too can help to make sure that I can continue sharing my recipes for free with everybody. And speaking of patrons, I was thinking about doing sort of like an added exclusive content just for patrons. More of not recipes or anything, but more of kind of like Q&A, but sort of like story time. I often get emails from people and they ask me questions just about my experiences in the bakery when I owned my bakery. One of my newer patrons recently asked me why I sold my bakery, and so I do have a lot of story that I think a lot of you might like. So I don't know, comment below if you think that that might be something of value, that you think you might want to kind of sit with me and listen to some story time about my experiences in the bakery. I could answer some of your questions that you have. So yeah, comment below if you think that's something as a patron you might want to kind of get in on, because honestly, I've tried to do that sort of same kind of content just on my regular YouTube channel here, and not too many people are interested in it, and I don't want to sort of overwater the channel with random stuff. So yeah, let me know if that's something that you guys might be interested in doing, and I could do that as sort of an added perk to the Patreon page. So let's put this cake to the test. Wow, this is one nutty cake. Not too sweet. Oh my God, you guys. The almond, the toasted almond comes through this cake in every single bite. So there you have it. That's the third addition to my Good Humor ice cream bar cake series. Let me know below which cake you love the best. Which was your favorite ice cream bar? Let me know if you're going to attempt to try this cake. I really do hope that you'll go for both layers. That white cake is perfection with this almond sponge cake. The almond paste in the buttercream, courtesy of Olive Nation. Don't forget, if you want to go ahead and grab some really high quality baking products at Olive Nation, get a 20% off discount. I have the discount code below the video. And what else? Tim, what are you talking about? Speaking of patrons and PayPal pals, you guys, I can't thank you enough. Not only are you funding the effort to continue allowing me to test and share these recipes for free, but you are funding the kitty cat rescue team that has sort of developed in my life. I have 4 cats now, 3 of them are rescues. And so your generous donations monthly not only are going to buy ingredients for these recipes, but they are helping to take care of these kitty cats that sort of find their way to me. I do not go seeking out these cats, but somehow they find their way to me. They know that I am budding crazy cat lady. So somehow these kitty cats know that I am going to love them and take care of them. And so medical bills and cat food, you know how that goes. So really, thank you to everyone who is supporting this channel. And I get it if you can't become a patron or a PayPal pal, just your liking and sharing and subscribing to my channel and definitely commenting below really helps push this video out so so that more people can see it. And all right, that's enough talking out of me. Let me finish this second birthday cake of the week for me. Really hope you guys are gonna try this recipe. As always, Gretchen'sVeganBakery.com to grab all of the recipes. And until next time, happy vegan baking, guys. Bye for now.